Should be a good meeting today.
How's your morning going?
The live stream going. Should be a good conversation today. Yeah, up early today. That's good. We got our mirror board. Let's open up Snapshot as well.
Got the stream going. Nice.
Got the stream. Right on, right on. I think for today, we don't have too many proposals to review, actually. The ones we're going to discuss are going to be, I guess, what we'll be reviewing. So we can, we'll get into that here shortly. I can go through quickly what we're going to go through today, and then we'll kick off here.
All right. Just real quick for the guys that are expecting the sweaters. We're really hoping that they're gonna be ready, but there's a couple final technical issues that might delay it until tomorrow. But they're not actually going to be shipping until Tuesday anyway. So it's really just we have a couple days here. So there is one final. I think it's because the weekend it's taking a little bit longer to get replies on stuff. So we'll see how we are looking in an hour, but it's a good possibility at this point that they're going to be delayed until tomorrow, unfortunately. Just wanted to let you guys know in case you were planning on that. Yes. If you got here just for the sweater, I can't say go back to bed, but sorry about that. This is why we don't like to announce things, but it's so close, but there's just a one little blocker holding it back.
Yeah, man. Some delays. Definitely have it for New Year's though, right?
Well, it's gonna. So if you're in the U.S., you're definitely gonna receive it by Christmas. It's just a question of because they're gonna be shipping on Tuesday, so we'll have it for sale by tomorrow. And then they'll start shipping out on Tuesday. And if you're in the U.S., you'll definitely get it by Christmas. If you're in Europe, there's a good chance you'll get it by Christmas as well. And then everything else outside of that might be a day or two after.
Okay. And sorry, I did miss that first part there. Are we actually dropping the sign-up form? Because yesterday we discussed dropping the sign-up form or the purchase form for these sweaters halfway through the meeting.
No, so the site was planning to go live in an hour from now, but there's just a technical issue that's delaying it.
Okay, yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that.
Yep, I'll let you guys know, and in an hour, see how things are looking.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's just quickly go over what we'll be discussing today, and we'll get right into it after that. So we got Agate 51 results or revote without the recused applicants. This is the vote with Yannick. The DAO Foundation vote, and I think Yannick stepped down. This. And so there's a flash poll that indicated 2/3 of a preference for redoing the election with no new entrants. So everyone who wanted to remain in the running is going to be included. And so I think Hardcore's added a note here. The purpose of the meetings is to inform and educate the DAO, provide a platform for DAO engagement, facilitate progress and accountability on DAO activity, and a weekly check-in. Yeah, of course. So this will be put through as a new vote, but with the same members, minus whoever is no longer in the running. So if you are stepping down, oh yeah, you got your link. Yeah, good. If you are going to be in the running, just I don't know, Dan, maybe they can just confirm like in the signaling thread that they are still in the running, and then we'll just make a new proposal with the current entrants, right? That'd be the easiest way, probably.
I mean, if they haven't pulled out by this point, then I would assume that everyone in there is still good to go. We could have them double confirm, I guess. We'd have to make an announcement, or at a very minimum, DM everyone on that list.
Yeah, I think I'll try and do some follow up just with the ones I know are no longer in the running, confirm that, and then just if you are in the running, just make sure that, or if you're not in the running, sorry, make sure you let one of us know or reply in the signaling thread that you're officially pulling out. So I think, like you said, by now we kind of know who's no longer going to be in there. So yeah, we'll move forwards with the remaining applicants, and I know there's more than 9 remaining applicants, so should still be we should still be good for that. The weighted voting. Weighted voting is a topic that was brought up in the DAO, and I think this goes back to the
Pretty interesting, and I know it helps the vault a lot. That's kind of the number one thing they've been asking for.
Yeah, and I think a good point made here. It maybe has a greater sense of There's a greater sense of responsibility when you're casting a vote. Maybe you're being more thoughtful when you're actually casting your vote. Oftentimes we see, and I haven't heard it from too many people lately, but I have heard in the past of people voting yes just because everyone else voted yes, and maybe they actually felt 40% no, but they still voted yes because everyone else did. And so this might be a way to more accurately reflect their not really indecision, but like their, I guess, lack of not decisive on one decision. So you're going to split it between the two. That would be a great option for someone like that. So yeah, there is a current, I believe it's a SIG prop out right now that you can go vote on. Let me open this up here. Update the template to require the use of weighted voting, and looks like we got 6.2 out of 9 million for it to meet quorum, and we have 94% of applicants voting to require weighted voting. So I personally think this is a good idea. I don't think it really hurts to implement this, but I'm curious to know what other people think. Are there some downsides to implementing this?
Yeah, I'm also curious. I haven't mentioned any, but it would be interesting to hear if anyone has raised any issues on it.
Like how do we see proposals changing if people start voting with more neutrality? Like if their votes are less polarized towards one way or another, and we get more people voting 50-50 on things, I'm curious to know how that's going to affect the how that's going to affect outcomes. You know, I mean, how many of us have voted on something feeling like we were like kind of like 60-40 or 50-50 on something? Yeah, I mean, yeah, hardcore. I kind of, yeah, in a way, I agree with you. It's kind of like an abstain in a way. Is it? Is 50-50 the same as abstaining?
No, because, well, I guess if we count something like an abstain towards quorum, then yes, it would be the same. Whether or not we should count abstain towards quorum, I guess we should, right? So if we do count quorum, abstain towards quorum, then a 50-50 decision would be, I think, the same.
Yeah, it's like throwing both balls in the bag. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't.
It's not the same since there's the difference needed, but the difference would be the same if you voted exactly 50-50 on both, right?
Yeah, the percentage, your contribution for your vote, percentage-wise, would be the same for both. For if you had two options, it'd be the same for both. Oh, okay. Choina makes a good point. If the Gotchi vault doesn't vote on this prop, it won't make quorum, and the deadline is a few hours. So I guess if the vault is going to vote on this or not. Oh, and the vault sister prop concluded yesterday. Do you guys know the outcome of the sister prop? Was it to go ahead and vote for required weighted voting?
Seems like they really wanted this proposal, so
Yeah,
I hope that
they were in favor of this. Okay. Yeah, if there are any vault members that have the ability to execute on that, that would be awesome. 5 hours, I think you said, right? 5 hours. Yeah. Okay, so that's weighted voting. Don't see huge opposition in our group here, but if you have some objections, definitely reach out. But this is wrapping up here pretty soon, so you don't have much time. You got 5 hours. So. Moving on here, if we can move on from weighted voting, I would like to. We got the Alchemica competition we can discuss, and we can discuss the spillage conversation as well. There's people saying burn it. There's people saying reserve for district DAOs. I want to get to that in a second. First, I would like to kind of discuss. This is a ongoing conversation between myself, Dr. Wagme. There's DTF members. There's Mikey J. Some really involved community members who have been either in the past involved or currently involved in DTF related activities, and kind of wanted to share some of my experience on this, and also as a DAO, kind of think of a path forward for us to better identify and also fund like really good projects. So I have some notes I took down today. Part of this comes from the mission and vision work that we've been doing. Some of the form entries, I've been looking over those, and I think part of this process will be informed by some of the things people have said about the things that DAO really values, like his guiding values, and things that we could do really well as a DAO, and focusing on those. So some of the things on this forum, I'll actually plug this. I highly recommend you check this out. This is just all the replies we got from the feedback form. Really well done. Lots of great insights in there, and I think it's going to help us as we're trying to get together our like DAO funding structure.
I can't open it.
Oh, you're not able to open it.
No.
I'll plug the CSV. That's okay. I'll plug the CSV file instead. I think it's just because it's a locked account. So I'll share this near the end. I'll make sure I grab it. I'll share it at the end. But there's a yeah. I'll make sure I drop the CSV file in here at the end of our meeting here today. But basically, some of the highlights from this form I wanted to go over. If the DAO, one of the questions on there is if the DAO had to pick 3 guiding values, kind of what would they be? And some of the values on there that I thought were interesting were, to maintain, secure, and improve the protocol. The DAO is also a vehicle for voters to realize their ideas and get consensus around their ideas. That's kind of where we could use some work, especially regarding proposals and grants and stuff like that. And then actualization is something we're actually witnessing now. We're seeing projects like the Forge. You're seeing the Gotchi Farming. They're working on something really cool. I can't really speak on right now, but it's going to be pretty impressive. And these community-driven projects that are actually going to create a lot of value for the protocol. So I think that is it's an important thing. We should value that as a DAO. And also to foster an environment that encourages broad contribution community talent. And to be honest, I don't know if I've done if I've community, and I think one of the things we can work on as a DAO is to try and identify those contributors who may want to contribute to DAO initiatives, but there's almost like sometimes an imposter syndrome when you have a vetted core group of members that are, they've been known to do work and execute it well. And it's sometimes can be hard for a newcomer to penetrate that and actually get recognized, even though they can actually contribute in a meaningful way also. So I think we should, I'll talk about the contributor pool here in a sec, but I think it should help address that a little bit. We should commit to decentralized governance, and this is always a conversation in Aavegotchi DAO. But we should also, when we're thinking about creating a funding group or an executive committee, we should think about it in more of the way you would look at a kind of like a multicellular organism rather than like a top-down corporate structure. DAOs, from what I've noticed, they work really well when you have people that are willing to see themselves kind of with different talents, but as equals, and are able to actually communicate and share with each other to come up with really good ideas and execute on them. So I think that's something we should keep in mind. And then inclusivity is also ties in with what I was saying, fostering an environment that encourages broad contributions. So these are just some of the things I've been thinking about as we kind of want to put our executive committee together. The DTF is up for SOP review every 12 months as defined in there. And so I think Dr. Wagme is stepping down, as well as 2 other DTF members. But we should think about how we want to move forward now as a funding group to be effective. Also, now that we have the Aavegotchi Foundation that's going to be formed, and they're gonna be able to manage, well, not directly manage the treasury, but they will be assigned with, I guess, guarding the treasury. So what's our relation to them? So yeah, if the DAO could do one thing really well, what would it be? We want to bring value to shareholders and also be Gotchi Gang's method of building new things on top of Pixelcraft, kind of like what we see with the Forge. So these are the kind of projects that we want to fund. So I'm going to share my current funding process and some of the challenges that I personally experienced that I think we can address with like a new structure. So the PM, myself, we currently I currently fill the role of, I'm going to drop this other Miro board that we have for DAO structure. that myself, Dr. Wagme, and Mikey J had put together a little while back. Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah. So in that DAO structure, it outlines a executive committee comprised of DAO members elected by the DAO, and they will serve a term of, a certain amount of years. Could be 1 year, as per the SOP, or multiple if we think so. Nominates and elects a executive committee chair. They nominate department leads for DAO approval. They recommend initiatives to the DAO. So actually, Mikey J or Dr. Wagman, I think, made a really good point that the DAO could, this funding group could actually vote on their priorities every quarter. What is our priority for funding every quarter? And start working on larger initiatives, quarterly initiatives. Sets organizational goals and priorities. And so these members would be compensated on a monthly stipend set by the DAO, kind of like what I get right now. It's a monthly payment by the DAO. There's a time commitment expectation, so a certain amount of hours per month for members, and hours per week for the chairperson. And so they'll also approve funding for department leads, and these members will be doxed to PC. So that's the structure there. Currently, as a project manager, I find actually I'm doing a little bit of all of these things. So there's kind of a broad combined role under the PM right now. Like the PM is, we're doing these meetings. We're creating material like the newsletter every week. There's a DAO media team that I coordinate with to make sure like the topics that we discuss here are disseminated, and people can actually get like little clips and information, follow-up information. Also following up with projects. I don't think I went through the review process yet, but basically the PM does a little bit of all of these right now. So what we should think about is what for the executive committee, how many do we need, and what roles are these people going to fill? So currently, the applicant submits grants through the interface. I usually receive the grant, I'll review it, reach out to the applicant, we have a meeting together, and then we go through deliverables, the budget, and then in cases where I need some outside support, I'm usually reaching out to outside talent, people that I know within the community that will be able to provide feedback. So if it's technical feedback, if it's regards to a specific ask for budget, then there's people that actually have background information on this that can kind of take a second look at it, but they're not being paid to review it or anything like that. So there's a lack of depth sometimes with how deep we dig down into some of these proposals. The applicant and I usually come to a conclusion on whether we're going to fund this or not. If it's not a feasible project, then it doesn't get funded. And then we can also discuss the amount and adjust the budget to bring it down to something more reasonable if it's a big ask. Then the application is submitted to the DTF for review. And currently a DTF vote is done by the sitting members. And then the DTF members approve or disapprove the budget. But oftentimes the proposal is not getting a subsequent look after I've looked at it. It's more of a brief second review, like it's a second pass more than a final review. And then there's a vote, and then the PM, will provide status updates to applicants. So I think right now it's a centralized process. It's one person taking basically accountability for everything, and the expectation is on. I think moving forward with an executive committee, we can have I see with Dr. Wegme's comment here, and I think we should have a specific defined roles under an executive committee. Maybe 3 to 4 leads to start, but really each one can have their own specialized skill set and be able to work together to vet proposals. Those vet proposals, the expectations here outlined in the flow chart here, and also being able to review finished work and be able to approve grants. So I'm just reading Dr. Wagner's comment here. It's really important we define these roles and expectations thoroughly. I think we need multiple people, at least 3, to provide accountability to roles as defined. There's so much work to be done that it's easy to creep or expand beyond the defined scope. Yeah, for sure. Hefe is so motivated and working so hard for this community, but with that has taken on some work that's beyond the initial DPM scope. Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree with that. And similarly, my work on the DTF has often creeped beyond its DAO approved and communicated scope. Yeah, for sure. Dr. Wagme, seeing all the work that he's put in there, and being in this role for 3, almost 4 months now, it's really easy actually with 2 roles, even with 2 roles, to spread yourself really thin. So I agree. We should think about the what exactly does the DAO need for leads? If we're only going to pick 3 or 4 leads, and maybe there are these leads here that Mikey J's put down, or maybe it's a combination of these things like he suggested, and we have a combined lead. Like I see the communications lead and the product lead would be the same person initially. That's just an example, but we should think about that.
One thought I had is, could the department leads be the same as the executive committee? Like, do we really need that distinction between the two?
No, I think we're kind of like thinking of amalgamating, so making it the same thing. I actually agree with that. Yeah. So like these
Seems
department.
Like the executive is more of like the admin class.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think we're kind of thinking more in terms of amalgamation and having, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're along the lines of these leads would also be the executive committee. I think that's what we're thinking of starting out as. And then, there is the ability to branch out, but I don't think we need an executive committee and leads. Like the executive committee would be made up of the department leads, and there would be 3 to 4 of them. There'd be set voting terms and whatnot. So, yeah. And then so a path forwards. Let's think of a path forwards. We basically need a group which can organize its top priorities for funding projects. And the funding would be allocated to this committee, the executive committee, just like it has been to the DTF. The DAO would nominate the members following the SOP that was developed by Dr. Wagme. We're thinking 3 to 4 leads. The leads will be responsible, like I said, for reviewing the proposals. The leads will be vetted for their prospective roles. So the benefit of this is if we get a executive committee with specialized leads, let's say we have a technical lead who is really experienced with software development, he knows how to audit Solidity contracts, that sort of thing. That technical lead could be really valuable for the DAO because they would not only be able to review projects and look for specific gaps in security, or Coder Dan, you mentioned eventually when we push proposals through, there should be code submitted with the proposal, and that code would have to be audited before it's implemented.
If not fully audited, at least reviewed by multiple parties. We've seen that the auditors never really, in general, there's been a lot of times when auditors read code and didn't find any issues with it because they're just not familiar with the code base. And so it's really important for the Aavegotchi code base that whoever is on that tech lead is actually pretty intimately familiar with the Aavegotchi contracts if they're going to be auditing or reviewing PRs that are created for it. That's one of the biggest issues we've had just in general with auditors, is they never really understand the code base deeply enough to actually be of any help.
And I mean, the even if we, to have that outside audit, but to then have a lead who is familiar with the code base and could point out, areas of focus, or like, hey, you missed this. Can you please look into this a little bit more? Kind of highlight areas where there could be vulnerabilities. I think it'd be great to have a lead that's specifically inclined for work like that. And then also the lead could also be involved in projects that have that gap, where it's like, you have a great idea, you have a great project. We have our DAO lead. He happens to be free this month. He's happy to be included in your proposal, so long as, of course, there'll be funding allocated for that work, like separate funding. But the executive committee could also be a resource for, when we have a really promising project coming to the DAO and they're actually missing a Solidity developer, where they're missing, somebody who understands Aavegotchi code base, but they do have a Solidity programmer. Maybe they're junior, and maybe they have some limitations. The DAO executive tech lead could help fill some of those gaps, kind of like as a service. But this would be secondary. It would be secondary to their primary role, which would be reviewing, like vetting and reviewing proposals. So yeah, the leads would review the work. And then, so lastly, I wanted to mention that all of this can be tied in together with DWork. So we could have our executive committees, they could have their own contributor pools, or we can have a larger contributor pool. And the contributors would have their own roles assigned in Discord. So just how we have Gotchi Gang, we have landlords, we would now introduce maybe 3 or 4 other tags that would identify you as a certain type of contributor, and we could actually tag that type of contributor. So if we have for example, software, contributors that are specialized in more technically inclined stuff, like developing software, that would be one contributor pool. Then you'd have like a creative contributor pool, be like artists and content creators and that sort of thing. So there's different ways to connect all the roles to DWork. But once this has been established, it'll be pretty easy to assign work in a very fair way. If you've assigned yourself as a contributor, you will have opened up the opportunity to get work assigned to you. That would be the entry point. So you could be in the DAO, you could be in Aavegotchi, you could be messing around with the protocol or whatever, coming to the meetings. But if you don't have the contributor role, you wouldn't be assigned any work. And I think that'd be fair to say, if you wanted to get work from the DAO, you would just sign up through DWork, and we would get you added to one of the contributor pools. Quincy's asking, what is the process to get assigned these roles? I think the process would be quite manual at first, because we want to make sure we're not just letting in just anybody coming into the DAO. I think there should be a certain level of trust when you're assigning work to contributors. And there has been, a lot of the work that I've done or have assigned has been on the basis of trust. It's I know we're in Web3. We try to get away from we really admire trustless execution, and I think we should still value that. But a lot of the assigning of work has been done on the basis of trust, that that person's good for it and they're going to actually deliver on it. So there's I think there should be a vetting process for contributors, but it's not going to be too of a it's going to be an inclusive process. We'll try to make sure we can get as many contributors included in the pool. I haven't honestly thought about the specific criteria yet, but that's going to be based on what type of contributor pools we have or how we set that up. Dr. Wag, we couldn't get a temp check on the idea of an exec committee. Is this something you guys want and think would benefit the DAO?
Back to my question, does this mean when we say executive committee,
the clarification there is the executive committee would be made up of department leads. I'm sorry if that doesn't.
Well, it says department leads are hired by the executive committee, and it says it says that the executive committee approves funding for the department leads. Like the way it sounds on this board, and I know it might be out of date, is that the executive committee is kind of like
oversight,
nominating, and like kind of doing the funding.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's actually the I guess the way you're saying it is actually kind of how the way the DTF is currently set up. But what we would like to do is have a set of, initially I called them reviewers. Now, sorry, there's like so many terms I've thrown around. It can, probably made it confusing. But basically, we would have this DAO executive committee, which would be that's the DTF, and within that you would have 3 to 4 leads who would have, they'd be specialized leads. So you'd have an operations lead, a tech lead, communications lead, for example. And they would be responsible for reviewing and funding proposals collectively.
Right.
Sorry, yeah, the chart doesn't make that clear, to be honest. I can see where where there's that.
Last time we were talking about the DTF PM being the one that would actually be dispersing the funds, because there was a discussion that the department leads may not want to be doxxed, and that would mean that they can't. Well, if the DAO is sending them funds, they might would, if it's a significant amount, it probably should be they should be doxxed anyway.
Yeah.
But that's might be a separate issue. But especially for being the ones that are actually distributing the funds, we didn't want the department leads to have that responsibility. So it came, I think last time we were saying maybe the DTF PM would be the one that would be dispersing the funds, and the directors could basically top up a hot wallet like every quarter or something with some funds. So the PM isn't holding like 500K worth of Ghost or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm perfectly fine taking on that responsibility. I think I was getting a little bit of pushback on one person managing a multi-sig wallet, but I have no problems with it. If everybody's okay with it, I'm all.
I think it was more that that we shouldn't put a lot of funds in there at any time. The group of 9 signers should be the ones that are still managing that treasury, I think. Yeah, the board. And then the disperser would just be more of like a hot wallet. You'd only have like a couple, maybe 20,000 ghosts or 30,000 ghosts in there at any time. And you would just use that as a hot wallet. So that would seems like that would remove the need for the overall executive committee.
Yeah, I mean, for all intents and purposes, just to clarify, we could say basically we need 3 to 4 leads for the DTF, and just let's just say the executive committee. I mean, that might make things confusing. Basically, you have a PM who is doxxed, who manages the multi-sig, and then you have the DTF 2.0, and you have 3 to 4 leads that are specialized leads that will be responsible for vetting and reviewing proposals, and I can manage the disbursement part of it. Yeah, that's my bad, Dr. Wagme. I should have actually, based on our conversations, it actually does, we've thrown a lot of terms around here, but for all intents and purposes, we're used to calling the DTF what it is, and maybe we should just run with that. So the DTF is basically looking for 3 to 4 leads. If I'm going to make it like just simple, and I don't mind managing the multi-sig if that's going to help with opening up the candidate pool. I know some of you don't want to be doxxed for a lead position, so if that opens up the candidate pool, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with doing the disbursement aspect of it.
Seems like this is kind of where we are. The DAO PM disperses the funds. Department leads review the proposals and the work, and the directors hold the treasury and send funds to DAO PM. There is the question though of the department leads, because if they're going to be, these are paid roles. Technically it's better if they are doxed to at least us, so we know who these people are. I think in general, there's quite a few talented members that are willing to do that, but if they're not, that would be something we would need to discuss. But I think that structure would work pretty well.
Yeah, I kind of really like this structure. It's a iteration on top of what the DTF was doing before. It's like an evolution of the DTF, and yeah, I'm kind of just reading the comments here. Let's see. Yeah, I'll have this board updated. I'll talk to Dr. Wagme and Mikey Che. We'll make necessary adjustments to this model here to kind of fit what we've been talking about during this discussion. Dr. Wagme, my hope is that department leads are the executive committee and would be responsible for acquiring and executing on DAO goals, not just application reviewers. Yeah, I think there's the opportunity to expand to a wider role for sure. I just want to just for setting up the workflow between D-work, funding a proposal, reviewing a proposal. That's kind of what I wanted to focus on for today, and kind of have a plan moving forward of how we're gonna approach this. I think we have a good idea, and hopefully we can get together sometime this week and discuss this further and come up with more specifics on the individual positions. But yeah, I definitely see a bigger opportunity here for what the DTF can do. I'm just gonna hop back to my notes here. I think I covered everything, to be honest. So the thing we'll discuss this week is exactly how many leads do we need. I think between 3 and 4, and we'll think of the pay structure, what it's going to look like. If it's a monthly pay, what is that going to look like for each of the roles? And yeah, okay, yeah, no, thank you for hanging out with us here today. And Dr. Wagme, we'll catch up. We'll catch up next week. So those are my thoughts on my experience so far as DPM, the DTF improvements that we'll be implementing here, and I think it's going to really address some of those points I made earlier with inclusivity, continuing to commit to decentralized governance, but also have more direction as a DAO, and maybe the DTF can lead that. Creating that direction of where we want to go. So there's a lot here. I could keep going on about this, but I think I wanted to touch on the funding aspect of it mainly today. Okay, let's hop back to the Miro board here.
I want to ask, on this Miro board, do we have the topic real quick, if we could, of the bizarre listing fee? That's it's kind of a blocker for us because we're working on a new an update to the bazaar that will allow people to delist or relist their gotchis without delisting. And so we're kind of working through it here. And while we were working through it, I just had this this idea, like, is this bazaar fee really very productive? Could we possibly retire it or replace it with something? Because I've seen it happen many times. There's like people will get airdropped something and they want to go list it in the bazaar, and they don't have any ghosts, and then people have to work with them, get them onto quick swap, get them swapping, and it's kind of it's definitely some friction. So a couple ideas would be, removing the fee entirely, which would essentially allow what's going to happen is botters are just going to relist everything immediately as fast as possible and try to capture as much trading as they can. If we add in a small fee, which what we've currently done, we definitely still have botting activity. Hard to say what it would be without the fee, but it's probably lower than it would be. And then another idea would be, what if we just change it to 0.1 Matic instead of 0.1 Ghost? Because if you're on Polygon, you already have some Matic. It's still a little bit of friction, but it's definitely easier than having to schlep over to QuickSwap if this is your first time, onboarding in the Aavegotchi.
It's like a user experience improvement.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it's more for the onboarding process where we're getting new people coming in and they might have received an item and they want to sell it. Like, oh, this is kind of cool. I can earn some ghosts. Maybe they receive a fake gotchi and they're like, I want to sell my fake gotchi. I want to get some ghosts, and maybe that's the thing that gets them into the economy. But they're like, oh man, I got to get some ghosts first. I have to get over to QuickSwap. It's this whole thing. We could argue that we're looking for people that are willing to do the work, but realistically, that it's just going to kind of increases our bounce rate, I think. So there's a couple interesting options in this thread. If you've went through it, one of them is, I think CryptoGotchi says it here, listing should be free, but price changing and delisting should cost a fee. So that's pretty interesting. And the fee could be in Matic. So that would basically allow you to put something up once, but if you want to change the price or delist it, then you would have to pay the fee, which could be pretty interesting.
I also like the idea of the Matic, replacing that with the Matic fee, because one would think that if you're on Polygon at that point of interaction, you probably have some Matic by then, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit easier to get Matic. You can swap for Matic gaslessly on Polygon, or people just get Matic a little easier. So
yeah,
it's the gas token.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a blocker that we would like to solve before we have kind of two PRs ready. One is allowing people to delist and relist in one transaction, and the other is batch bazaar transactions. So basically being able to batch relist a bunch of stuff at once, which should be interesting for people to make some tools, or for us on V2 to have some tools for basically inventory management and being able to batch update a lot of stuff at once. But so the question is, when you batch update, should it be free to do that, or should it cost Ghost, or should it cost Matic? We have to make that decision before we can finalize the PR. And so then the other question is, well, what happens to the fee? Currently, the 0.1 Ghost is being burned, and as we've seen, each listing costs 0.1 ghost, so we're at roughly 60,000 ghosts that has been burned. So nothing to roll your eyes at, but nothing also not super significant. I mean, in the long term, it would add up, but 60,000 ghosts compared to the total amount that has been burned, which is 2.2 million from primary sales, it's still kind of a drop in the bucket. So like about 5%, I guess. So we should just think about, is it worth it for the friction to be burning that 0.1 ghost? If we switch it to Matic, then we're not going to burn Matic. It wouldn't really do anything. So we would probably collect that Matic. And there's a couple of use cases that could be put forward to. One of them would be, we would use that Matic for the DAO treasury for potentially like player rewards, rarity farming, or things like that, and essentially swapping Matic for Ghost when we wanted to do a rarity farming season. Another kind of interesting idea would be to fund gasless transactions, which currently, if you guys remember, we had gasless petting for a while, but Biconomy, who was supporting that, essentially said, it's too much money, and they were kind of bootstrapping it for free at the beginning, but now they charge, you have to maintain a gas tank, and when you run out of gas, it needs to be topped up. So currently, we don't really have a revenue stream for Matic that would be long-term and sustainable, that would be able to keep that gas tank topped up fairly well, especially when gas goes above 1,000 or whatever. It just sucks that gas away. So one of the potential use cases for this could be, let's try and fund a gas tank, and then we could open up gasless transactions to things like the bazaar, maybe GVM auctions, a couple of areas that we know we're going to have more people that are like from layer 1 or just kind of casually coming in, and it might make their experience a little bit easier having that gasless transaction where they don't have to really do anything. And we've seen, if you've never used a gasless transaction, if you've ever tried Lens protocol, basically Aave is footing the bill for all the gas on Lens right now, which is an heroic effort for sure. It's definitely not cheap. I've spoken with Mark about it a little bit. Like, hey, how are you guys gonna pay gas forever? And apparently, eventually the providers, like the websites like Lenster, will need to find a business model, because eventually Aave is going to turn the tap off and stop paying for gas. So if we want to support gasless transactions, which I think we do, it's just a question of how can we have a sustainable revenue source that helps pay for them. Then that would be something that this 0.1 Matic could potentially help support. So
yeah, for sure. I'm a huge fan of the Matic idea.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's currently a of course, the forum discussion you started, and that seems like it's has like pretty good engagement. It's 20 replies. Is there anything from that conversation that kind of stood out? Like anything anybody said that might kind of support like the Matic? I like the idea of the Matic delisting fee, and having maybe a fee to delist, but maybe there's no fee to list anything.
Yeah, I think Lulu says she thinks that the fee is more of an annoyance than a hindrance. It's kind of a disproportionate tax on cheap single listed items. So if you imagine like a raffle ticket, I guess you're almost paying more in gas fees and listing fees than you might earn from the actual raffle ticket. So that it could be seen as a hindrance and potentially limiting the volume that we have in the bazaar. But yeah, then goes on to say, I'd like to see more buy side features. That's kind of separate. So really, when do we want to have the fee? what token do we want to have it in, and then what do we want to do with the revenue. So it's kind of 3 different decisions here.
Okay. I like the idea of gasless petting. Matic funding the gasless petting account would be interesting.
Yeah, I would not recommend that personally, because petting is probably the biggest use of gas we have, and it doesn't really generate revenue in itself. So ideally, we would be paying for the transactions that kind of outside users are going to be coming in and seeing, and helping to ease the friction of getting involved with the project. So that's why I think like a GBM auction could be interesting, and Bazaar, and maybe probably not Gotchiverse, like the channeling and stuff. Those would probably just require normal, but anywhere where there's like a financial transaction that where the DAO is actually earning money on, it would be nice to have a gasless transaction for that.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like that. I like that. No listing fees for changing and delisting. Do it in Matic and fund the gasless transaction wallet. I think it'd be a great UI improvement for someone coming, even if it's not for petting.
Yeah,
it's great. That was one of the pain points I had coming like very new to Web3, and then finding Aavegotchi that was one of the points I had to, like, an obstacle I had to get over for sure.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, I think this needs to be because it's a kind of a core protocol change. So we'll make a SIG prop and a core prop for it. And then if there's no major disagreements, I don't know, do we have any sense of what people would prefer most?
Seiza is saying, I'm not a fan of Matic fees. I see many people keeping very low Matic in their wallet, and depends on price of Matic, which is less stable than Ghost. Yeah, but I think the big pain point you highlighted, the fact that you have to go now to quick swap to get the token if you were airdrop something, which happens often, especially with fake gotchi cards. We'll see probably a lot of them get airdropped and stuff to people, to holders, or
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's going to be a pain point for those people.
Team zero fee. What would that look like? Are we not? I mean, we could do zero fee. It's just do it up to see. At that point, basically, there's no friction for the automators that are going to just delisting and relisting as fast as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the idea of having a fee for delisting, but not a fee for initial listing, because then you're still capturing fees from traders, but you're not necessarily, you won't be getting fees from someone who's just like selling the one item every 3 months, but someone who's maybe frequently trading items will be generating fees alternatively. And then you're also addressing the, if I get airdropped something and I want to sell it, if you're not going to be delisting the item and you're intending to sell it just at whatever price you listed at, then there would be no, if you want to call it a penalty, but there would be no kind of penalty or fee for that.
Why should we make it easier for them to sell it? I mean, people get airdrop something, they think it's cool, but maybe they just don't like the art, but they want to get some ghosts. And then some people are going to stay in the economy. Yeah, some people are just going to sell it. But I mean, we shouldn't be making it hard for people to do stuff. The whole point is to make it, the onboarding process really needs to be as simple as possible, which is something that we want to focus on more in 2023. Now that we're getting to where the product is a little bit more polished, a little bit more complete, like we're going to be focusing on onboarding more.
I was listening to a podcast with one of the I can't remember what studio he worked for. I think it was Blizzard, but he was talking about this metric. They were thinking about like clicks to fun. You know, like how many clicks when you first get to the UI of something. How many times do you have to click before you're actually enjoying the experience? You're either playing a game now, you're in an arena, or you're in the Gotchiverse. You're farming. How many clicks does that take you to get there? And I think right now, coming to the Aavegotchi UI to being like in the Gotchiverse is probably, maybe 8 to 10 clicks, like different things you're clicking, whether it's transactions or signing, on a button, before you actually get to the main experience, especially setting up the hot wallets and all that. So I think if we can minimize that, right? Because if you play like a traditional Web 2 game, you'll notice it's like literally like 2 clicks. Like you're clicking like 2 things and you're like in the game now. They've made it really easy, but of course that took a long, long time to refine that and to get those games to where they're at. But I feel like we could kind of aim for the same thing where it's like how many things do you have to click on before you're like in the arena fighting someone? You know what I mean? If you can reduce that.
Lending would also be another area where we could potentially add gasless lending, but that would be awesome, by the way. If we that's one area where it would reduce a lot of friction. It would be to allow people to just get their gotchi for without any matic, but they would still need ghost if it was a 0.1 or whatever listing for ghost. But if it was a free listing and also a gasless transaction, would be great for onboarding for sure. But it's just a question of how do we pay for it. If we have revenue sources that actually do generate revenue for the DAO, it could help offset that. That would be ideal. And Bioeconomy has given us some grants and stuff, but it's not really anything significant. I think it would be gone within a couple of weeks once we set it up.
Yeah. Do you think
I see some people thinking it sounds like part of we shouldn't be trying to make things hard for people to prove like how hardcore they are and like that they're eligible to be in our community. Like that kind of defies general logic. You want to make things as easy as possible because to have that higher conversion rate. Like once people hate friction, the moment something becomes hard, it becomes work and they just bounce.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of Web3 projects aren't even thinking about this. So I'm glad we're thinking about this because this is what's going to lower that barrier to entry for someone who's very new to Web3. Or I think the ideal would be to be such a low barrier to entry that someone could onboard to Aavegotchi as easily as they would for any other Web2 game, any other mobile game, Web2 game. It should be a seamless experience eventually, hopefully. So Coder Dan, for this, if we were to move forward with the SIG prop, do you think this motion could be moved like in one SIG prop? I think you had 3 questions there that you asked. Do you think, we could address this in one SIG prop?
Yeah, I'd like to see a little bit more discussion from those who have strong opinions on stuff before we go to SIG prop, because I'm not totally sure what we want the options to be at this point. Please, if you do have any strong opinions, drop them here in the post so we can get those documented.
Yeah, absolutely. Am I good to move on to one of the other 2 topics we have here? I would like to talk about Gotchi board. Actually, would be a good one to discuss. And then we also have a just follow-up conversation on last week about the spillage, managing spillage. So Gotchi board, I'll plug Gotchi board right now. This was developed by Mark. Check out Gotchi board. It's pretty cool. Shows you the top 3 highest Alchemica spenders per month or actually it is per, you can do it per week or per month for any specific week or month. Shows you the unique addresses on the leaderboard, installations that have been minted for that specific time frame. And this could be really cool for gamification. Right now it's the 4 Alchemica types, but eventually it could, there are the bazaar, parcel, and glitter spending options that are going to be added as well. So this is really cool. Thanks to Mark for putting this this together. And we'll be able to have some Alchemica competitions, which is what this proposal is structured around. So fun Alchemica spending competition. This has been a long time in the works, but they are finally getting ready to launch Gotchi Board Competition Season 1. And so the competition will rank which addresses have spent the most Alchemica for a given time frame. So there'll be a 4 1-week rounds and a total of 80,000 ghost for grabs. That's what this is proposing. Pixelcraft has already confirmed they'll provide 25,000 ghost, and this proposal is to fund another 55,000 ghost from the Gotchiverse Player Rewards wallet. Full details can be found in the forum post, and the aims of the competition here are incentivize Alchemica and glitter spending to reduce the circulating supply before PvP, provide a fun gamified way for gamers and for guilds and individuals to build their farms, and have an entertaining and friendly competition for all to participate in or observe. So this is kind of taking the vibe of rarity farming and kind of trying to apply it to building out your parcels. And, you know, the hope here is also, in addition to the entertainment, you know, that it'll actually maybe drive some positive pressure for Alchemica. And so if you look at Hardcore's Miro board here, there's an example of the different rounds, how they would be conducted, and the multiplier that you would get for those rounds. So there's like a specific type of distribution. Each round will be about 19,000 ghost. And then the leaderboard, of course, will rank the addresses that have spent the most. And then everything will be accounted for in FUD units. So FUD will be the standard unit of the raffle will only be applicable to addresses that have not won any leaderboard prizes. Each 1,000 FUD equivalent spent over the 4 weeks will get 1 raffle entry. So prizes will either be swept from the bazaar floor using 4,000 ghost or donated. At the end of 4 weeks, there'll be a live stream where the prizes are drawn. Method of drawing to be confirmed, but will be a low-tech off-chain solution. So there's a greater Gotchiverse leaderboard competition, and then there's also a raffle. So this is it's interesting. I want to see what people have to say about this. Personally, I thought this was a great idea. I just wonder if this is something that could have been like, what's the argument for funding this in Ghost versus Alchemica, I guess, is my one question. But also, do we see this having a positive impact overall on the Gotchiverse economy, or no effect at all? Or what are your thoughts on the impact this could have? So I guess 2 questions. What are the impact, and then also Ghost versus Alchemica for prizes. Impact.
Yeah, I mean, what's the stated goal of this proposal? I guess is a good place to start.
Yeah, the stated goal here, or the aims of this competition, It says to incentivize Alchemica and glitter spending to reduce circulating supply before PvP. That seems to be the main one there that they've outlined in their proposal here. To incentivize Alchemica and glitter spending to reduce circulating supply. That seems to be the main one. The other one, the other two are provide a fun, gamified way for guilds and individuals to build their farms and have an entertaining and friendly competition. Yeah, I think the one main aim here, it seems like, is incentivize Alchemica and glitter spending.
So it seems like the goal would be like how can we view this proposal as being successful? It seems like the metric would be how much Alchemica is being burned or spent, compared to if the DAO just took that 80K and basically bought all that Alchemica and burned it. Is it something like that?
Yeah, and I kind of look at Quincy's comment here, and I somewhat agree with it, to be honest. People already kind of have slowed down their spending on farming. So to actually dump a bunch of Ghost into the economy, I don't necessarily if it was spent on farming, it would result in kind of what Aavegotchi is saying. It's just more Alchemica issuance if they took that Ghost and recirculated it back into their farms. And if they didn't, and they just, either sold the Ghost or bought something else with the Ghost and kept it out of the Alchemica economy, then it's almost like they're getting a rebate. Like this is a rebate on your Alchemica spending. So I don't necessarily know if this sort of like incentive is actually going to result in more engagement per se. I think it's good intentions behind this idea, but I don't know if it actually will result in any kind of, it's kind of trying to say, oh, well, we'll incentivize Alchemica and glitter spending to reduce the circulating supply. So basically pump the price, right? That's what you're trying to do. But I don't know if it's actually going to do that. Like, even if you're trying to achieve that, I don't know if that's actually going to result in that. John Gotchi, I feel this proposal to be the dark side of capitalism. And Coder Dan, you made a good point. You said, well, what's the difference if we just, if we just took $80,000 worth of Ghost, purchased Alchemica or whatever, and burnt it? Does it have any different effect? I don't think it maybe does. I think it's a very similar effect. Probably.
Well, we could basically what we need to see is this is kind of how we evaluate the internal giveaway, not giveaways, but the mosaic tile and Halloween contest. Basically, if we had just basically we look at if we spent 10K on Ghost on Alchemica versus creating this incentive and then trying to incentivize spending via that, is there a multiplier? So is it 2x as effective, or 5x as effective, 10x as effective? That's kind of what we're aiming for. That's what this proposal I think is trying to aim for, is to have kind of a multiplier on how much Alchemica is spent versus the amount of Ghosts invested and given away. So that would be the main way to judge whether it's been successful or not.
I think my one criticism for Gotchi board is there's the competition lacks complexity. Like there's a lack of complexity here to call this a game. Like it's not really gamified in any way. If there was like an implemented point system and you had like points allocated to each type of decoration for the tier, there was a way to actually screen each parcel that's in the competition. Like if there was more granularity with how someone could skillfully modify the parcel to actually gain some sort of a points advantage in the leaderboard, aside from just the base Alchemica spent. Like we're looking at if we were to look at how you spend your Alchemica, also maybe you're just not building farms, and there's an aesthetic component to this competition as well. You know, I think we could this is a good base for a competition, but I don't think this serves as a standalone competition on its own. It lacks granularity. There's really no competitiveness. There's no complexity as a game. So I think in those terms, there's like it could use some more um, like gamification, like to make it fun. I don't know if it currently does that. I think currently it's a way to incentivize more spending, but it's not necessarily going to increase in more engagement or a, you know, I'm thinking in terms of a content creator. How could I create content around this and make it interesting for people to watch? And there, you know, it'd be really hard to make content on this type of a competition because you're not really, you would just be reporting on who's spending the most Alchemica. You know, like how do you make content from this? That's the value that I could see being brought to the table here, is actually community engagement and getting people. Yeah, exactly, Jesse. I think that would be the primary goal, because what's outlined in the proposal here may not necessarily be achieved. Like, I don't think it's gonna. Who knows if it's gonna actually significantly reduce circulating supply of Alchemica, or you know, I don't think in its current state would actually provide a fun way for guilds and individuals to build out their farms. Well, you know, it'd just be there'd be no content you can make from it, basically. So still like open to this idea. Like, it's a cool idea on the surface, but it probably needs like a set of rules and ways to compete so that it's not solely based on just how much Alchemica you spent in a week.
Yeah, Mark raises a good point. When I was reading his proposal, there are a couple kind of levers here. I think I haven't read it in a couple days, so I forget exactly what the rounds were, but there's different rounds have like a different multiplier depending on when you spend it. So one of the interesting parts is, do you spend it at the beginning of the week, or the beginning of the round, or do you wait until the end to see, like, to try and get at the top for that week? And so I think I have to check his spreadsheet, but I think different rounds have like a different multiplier for how early you are in spending it. That's that idea came from the glitter spending leaderboard that we talked about a little bit for the lodges and the lodge, the channeling for that. So that could be that adds a little bit of a dynamic to it, because people need to think, well, should I blow it all right here at the beginning, or should I wait and see how much I'm going to need to spend until the end of the round? Yeah, here we go. Here's the rounds and the multipliers. So this is so as you see, as you get down to the wire, the multiplier, it starts at 1x, and then I guess it goes down to 0.4x. Really, you could think of it as whatever, 2x to 1x or 1x to 0.4x. Generally, yeah. And then trying round 2 is trying all 1x. So you're basically, doesn't matter when you spend it, it's all the same. And then I think the other rounds have some other ideas as well.
What is the something I'm looking for here in the proposal? What's the tail of distribution for rewards? Like, is it like, I don't see how many, like, is it the top 100 addresses? Is it I don't see where it says.
I think it was top 20, and this is probably, maybe Mark, if he's around, could come on and talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, let's see if his hands up.
But I do wonder, you know, having top 20, is that going to make it easier to reach this kind of multiplier that we're talking about, or harder? Because if it's top 20, maybe like the more people can, the more that people are able to collaborate, the easier it is for them to reach an EV equilibrium where the money invested equals exactly what the return of Ghost would be. So when there's more participants, I think it possibly you might be more likely to have less collusion between the players, but that would need to be proven out.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I mean, I see reset here says 68% of the rewards to the top 5. Mark is following up here. Payout structure is based on poker tournament, similar to rarity farming, just less funding.
Right, but is a poker tournament, because I don't think they're quite the same, right? Because poker tournament, you're playing for yourself, but in this, as people have pointed out, you could have multiple wallets or multiple guilds kind of colluding together and investing in one parcel and then splitting the rewards between themselves. I don't know if this is equivalent to poker.
I mean, I like the idea of building across the board. If you have lower, mid-tier spenders also involved, it would be kind of great to have a longer tail of rewards. But like you say, I don't know how that would affect that the top portion of the leaderboard. If we were to do like let's say the top like 200 Alchemica spenders instead of 20, but then the rewards, the multipliers, the reward is concentrated still near the top, but there's that longer tail if you want to participate. It may actually open up the pool, and maybe you may have less collusion there. But I could maybe even at a lower level, you could see people purchasing one parcel together or managing one parcel together and splitting the rewards. You can see it happen.
Yeah, I'd be worried that if he says encourage guilds to battle it out, what if the guilds just said, "Hey, why don't we just work together and we'll invest together in a new parcel and build it up to level 9 as fast as we can, and we'll split the reward because we know we're going to get level 1, and we're not going to spend any more than we need to. We're going to kind of work together here so we don't outspend each other and have to fight over it."
That's why I think if we're gonna have a competition like this, there should be an aesthetic. Like we have enough in our like building economy that there are tiles, like mosaic tiles, there are decorations of different rarities. It could be a really good way to incentivize crafting. So like from Pixelcraft's point of view, if over this what did it say, over this 4 weeks, if you did like 2 craft releases, that would be really good for your crafting releases, because those, like let's say crafting a rare item would grant you another 3 points or something on the leaderboard. In addition to where your current standing is, you would get like a kind of a points boost from whatever decorations you have on your parcel. It could be a really good way to incentivize crafting, maybe. Free Bear, what incentive is there for a single parcel, single gotchi owner to participate in this? So I think you're also making a good point there. I think this is currently kind of aimed at the bigger spenders in our community and having some competition near the top there. But if you had a aesthetic aspect to this, I feel like it would throw something interesting into the mix for even someone with one parcel.
I think the other part that's probably hurting this a little bit is that there is quite a long build-up, and so people are starting to take this into account, and like they're already delaying their upgrades, or they're getting a huge stash of Alchemica right now, kind of waiting for it. When they, like, if this was dropped as a surprise, it would probably have a different effect than the kind of the month-long build-up there's been to it. Not saying it's not an interesting idea. It's just that is adding a little bit of friction, I think.
Mikey J makes a good point. That's kind of what I'm getting at here, is a parcel kind of rarity farming competition. So not just a Gotchi board Alchemica spending competition. Gotchi board could be a tool used as part of this rarity farming competition. But ultimately, as a DAO, if we thought of a better, like a more comprehensive competition that involves different aspects of like the rarity of your parcel, that's something we should consider. Maybe as a DAO, like there's some sort of a system that can be developed to determine how rare your parcel is. Would be interesting. And I see, uh, yeah, I could see there being a really good engagement from like different parcel rarities. Like the rarest parcels could get entitled to the biggest ghost award. But um, yeah, Mikey J, you get rarity points for having high level installations or crafting decorations. It seems a bit more dynamic. 100% agree with that. I think from this discussion, I'm getting the feeling that this proposal would not necessarily have any significant impact on like the economy. So, I mean, we got to think about what this is trying to achieve then. And if it's more engagement, then maybe we should be thinking of a more dynamic model that does use some of this, but also takes into account some of Mikey J's points there as well. I'm just reading some of the comments here. No futuristic. What happens after the competition ends? This is a little shot in the arm, not a fix. Mikey J, also in having the rewards work more like Gotchi rarity farming, so the rewards are evergreen, not limited to a time window. The player is willing to accept lower return in the short run. Anything to encourage a long-term mindset is good. Mike Callum, I'm still a fan of parade of parcels with public voting for best in category winners. We can introduce unique categories and voting criteria to help engagement and countering gaming. So this is something we've been discussing internally at GMI, is to actually do a pivot away from the way we've been doing the parades and actually focus on design and aesthetics of parcels and highlighting those during our live streams. So this could be a way to kind of introduce some competition amongst different aesthetics, especially if we have a rarity system in place. I think that's one of the really cool things about the Aavegotchi itself, that when first finding the project, was the BRS score, and having a allocated measure, like provable rarity for this NFT was really interesting to me. So, having a system for provable rarity of your parcel could also be interesting. So, yeah, overall, I think we should continue this discussion. I don't necessarily think, just from this discussion here, that this would be something we should implement in its current form. We should iterate on this a little bit and see if we could come up with something a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more competitive, and maybe more engaging from like a community perspective or content creation perspective. That's just my opinion.
It looks like in the short term, it is going to probably pass, and maybe like if the Gotchi Vault votes on it, and it's already got 5.7 mil in voting power, so it's probably going to meet quorum. I mean, I think it'll be a good experiment if we do get to a point where it reaches quorum and we do a vote on it. It'll be an interesting experiment to see what the actual EV ends up being, and it would be great to have some data from Mark or anyone who is doing analytics with to help and actually see, was this a positive EV proposal, or did it end up being kind of neutral EV or even negative. So it's not a huge amount of the treasury, and I think it is an interesting experiment to see.
Yeah, I agree with Mark. Relatively for what he's asking here, it looks like a really large amount, but actually, relatively speaking, it's a quite a small percentage of the player rewards pool. So we can maybe use this opportunity if it is going to pass. Let's use this opportunity for some data collection, and let's follow up post competition once this is wrapped up, or even during this while it's going on, and continue brainstorming, because I think we could be on to something bigger if we pursue this. We might be onto something bigger for parcel competition.
Yeah, I think we shouldn't shy away too much from some economic experiments. We're still very early in this whole thing. As long as we can have some follow-up and actually look at the data that does surface after it's complete. If we don't look at any data, then it's completely pointless.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it'll be good for Mark too, from a development perspective. He's put a lot of work. This is one of the DAO funded bounties for building a Alchemica leaderboard. And Mark took it up and built this out here. And he's done a really good job on it. I think there's a further updates that will eventually be put on here, like glitter spending, for example. And there will also be a competition UI that'll be implemented here also. So this will be a really cool tool, and appreciate him putting the work into this. I think this will be interesting. Let's see how this pans out.
By the way, do know it's only really, Pixelcraft, we're putting 25K towards this from our own budget, and then 55K is coming from the player rewards. So it's really only 55K from player rewards. Because from our perspective, we just want to see what the effect of this is. It's kind of a little land stimmy, and if it doesn't have any effect, or if it's a neutral EV, that's also fine. I wouldn't expect it to be negative EV, but it could be. But then, after doing this, we'll all be able to have a precedent. We can look at it and say, you know what, it didn't really work. That we shouldn't use this tactic anymore. Let's look for some other stuff. But if we don't try it, we'll never know. It doesn't really harm a lot, in the long run.
Yeah, agree. One last thing we'll touch on here, and then I know we're getting to about an hour and a half here, so just quickly go over the current results for the backspill. I guess that's what we're calling it now, backspill or spillover. No, backspill, actually. Backspill meaning this is the Alchemica that's accumulating in a wallet. The portion that you don't get when you channel. So the votes here: reserve the Alchemica for district DAOs. We have 2.9 out of 9. Actually, I'm going to go right to the form just so for accuracy's sake here. Okay, so we have 3 days left on the one proposal and 2 days left on the other one. So the reserve backspill for district DAO economy, that one has 4.5 out of 9 million quorum, and 67% saying do something else, aside from the proposed alternative here, which is to burn the backspill. And so the problems that both of these proposals are trying to address, if we even want to call them, if we want to call them problems, unreleased spillover or backspill has accumulated to a point where it would be too inflationary to add back into the economy. And many are worried that this event would be catastrophic for tokenomics. And then many also feel that the spillover is part of their yield and want some control of it or credit for creating. Those are the two things. This proposal is specifically suggesting allocate the backspill to district DAOs on their formation, and then this would be used only be used in municipal auctions, like decorating the districts or making them unique, and would not be released to the general economy ever. So these would be simply Alchemica allocated to DAO, district DAO development is basically what this one is suggesting. And then we have the burn it proposal we talked about last week. So basically saying just burn all the lock spillover, and either burn the lock spillover or burn the spillover going forward. And then option 2 was also option 1 was burn the currently locked spillover and then burn all the spillover going forward, unless it's a Saturday event. Option 2 is the same as option 1, but excludes spillover coming from farming, so land. I think there was quite a bit of opposition to this one. We see option 1 has 57% saying burn the lock spillover, and then 27% saying do nothing, and it looks like 6.1 out of 9 million. So it hasn't met quorum yet. So again, this goes back to like, what are we trying to achieve by doing this? So the district DAO idea sounds interesting. To have this Alchemica be used for like the greater district DAO development, but I know that's it's a little bit further down in your roadmap for, I think, for Pixelcraft, right? For district DAOs being official. I see you guys in the comments. You guys are still chatting about the 80K for Alchemica. But what's your take on the district DAOs reserving Alchemica for district DAO development versus just burning all of it? Like, what do we want to do with the backspill? I know we're still going on that conversation from the last topic, but let's try and get some discussion around this, and then yeah, people are saying burn it. Are we just going to burn all of it? Here's the thing with the backspill is currently it poses no threat to the DAO, and I don't think the DAO would favorably vote for this to be injected into the economy. I don't think anybody here agrees that that would be a good idea. So, you're not really affecting anything by just leaving this accumulating in the wallet until we have the opportunity to develop something really cool with it. Whether it's a district DAO thing or we want to build some community structures, things like that. It's not in circulation currently. So, I mean, my idea has always been kind of to, like Coder Dan, you guys are developing this arena. I mean, how cool would it be if the DAO collectively built this arena? Like maybe there was an Alchemica requirement for player features. Like it's like, okay, Pixelcraft wants to introduce this feature. If the DAO wants this feature, this is how much Alchemica it's going to cost, and maybe some of that Alchemica can even be funneled to like the devs or to the Pixelcraft side for the DAO, almost saying, yeah, we collectively built this from our Alchemica wallet. Maybe cost a large amount of resources to actually implement this feature in the game.
Yeah, we actually did have a little bit of a discussion about kind of that potentially charging Alchemica to create the arena, but it didn't really pass the test, and didn't really get too far in our discussions. It would be essentially, I mean, putting it towards that would be essentially the same as burning it. It's just how you phrase it, right?
Yeah, in a way, yeah. It would be basically permanently locked within that structure. So I mean, until a later point in time, maybe in the future, the DAO says, well, we don't need this arena anymore. If we're thinking long term, 5, 6, 7, whatever years from now, it's like we don't need this arena. We got private arenas now. So let's, maybe there's a conversation around breaking it down, releasing a certain amount of that. I don't know. I think we could get creative with it. I know before the Gotchiverse had launched, you'd mentioned, I can't remember what they were called, but they were kind of like wonders of the world, like these big structures that
Yeah.
would be constructed. I think community constructed, I think you'd said, would be interesting for this sort of use case.
Yeah, we were thinking this could be kind of the first of like a global wonder of the world. And by the way, it's not off the table. It's just we did not want to include that in this launch at all. So currently, when the arena comes out, it will be in Pixelcraft Square. But theoretically, if the arena has some sort of revenue source, it could be interesting for district DAOs to kind of like auction for the rights to kind of like a stadium, right? To have it in your city, auction for the arena it could be a mobile arena. It could move around to different districts based on who owns it for that quarter. So that could also be on the table, but it's not going to be something that is done immediately.
You could have districts lease the arena from their district DAO Alchemica allotment. So it's like, okay, this district DAO voted to allocate 50,000 or whatever amount, 50,000 KEK or something. So there's an auction, and we won the auction, and we had to pay this much in Alchemica, but we get the arena in our district for another 3 months or something, and it's producing revenue.
Yeah, we could do a district GBM auction for the arena rights.
Yeah, district GBM auction for arena rights. Exactly. That would be cool. That'll get crazy, man.
Yeah.
Oh man. I think there's some good ideas around this. We should keep talking about it, but I don't think it's favorable to burning the spillover. It would be the same as locking. It would be the same as locking it in a big structure or some community built thing. And so long as the DAO is in consensus that it's not favorable to release this into the economy, I think we would be in a worse off position by burning it and maybe needing it later, thinking we want to use this Alchemica for something, but we burnt it 3 months ago. It's yeah. And Free Bear, good point. It doesn't seem like it's going to pass anyway, but just thought I'd throw that out there. And if you haven't voted on this, go ahead and get your votes in. I think you have 2 days on one and 3 days on the other one. So. Just reading the comments here. Mikey J, we could also call that
ever added from the vote? No, because we were not able to get the DTF set up in a way that they could add the liquidity. So that's one of the first things that the new directors will be able to do is finally do the 3 million Ghost on Aave and then the DAO liquidity to Ghost Alchemica. We're not going to be doing a lot of DAO liquidity allocation on our side. It's not good to mix the streams.
Yeah, Mikey J, that's a good point. We could also provide assurances to investors by simply just voting on outlining a plan for how to allocate it. Yeah, and this actually perfectly ties in with our initial conversation we had around the DTF kind of iteration, the new DTF or the DTF moving forward. Would probably amongst ourselves as a group would be able to outline our priorities, and also have a kind of quarterly plan that we could present to the DAO. Priorities things we might want to spend Alchemica on, or sorry, Ghost on, projects we might want to be looking out for, that sort of thing. So. I see people talking about spillover. Yeah, I agree. We should stop micromanaging the Alchemica economy. We've made some big changes to it, and I think there was 2 Dune Analytics dashboards for minting versus burning Alchemica. I think they're inverse of each other, but they both show the Alchemica issuance going down after we made these changes. So we are kind of, in my opinion, the Alchemica minting versus burning currently is actually looks to be balanced. I'll try and pull up this chart here.
Yeah, it went up the last couple days, but in general, it's definitely better than it was before. Here's this is a good chart, and then we're also working on a new one. But you can see that FUD before the proposal is about, I think, 11.15 or 11.21. Kind of starts going. This is the circulating supply, so it goes down, and then it kind of goes horizontal for a little bit, and then there was a spike the last couple of days. But FOMO definitely had a net negative supply, which is great, and Alpha kind of kept going up, but much slower than before, and Keck also kind of was sideways. So basically, what that means is that the supply and demand is closer to an equilibrium than it was before, which is kind of what we're trying to achieve here.
Yeah, absolutely. We have some people asking about sinks. I think PvP is going to be really interesting with the Alchemica use case. Be interesting to see how people use Alchemica in the arena to like craft potions and stuff to gain an advantage. So I think PvP could potentially be a big sink for Alchemica, because competitiveness, right? I talked a few weeks ago about the animal spirits, bringing out that really competitive side of gaming. I think the arena is going to be able to do that. So if it does achieve that, then I'm sure people will be actually spending, or collecting as much of that Alchemica in the arena to craft these potions, and players will be involved in that process as well. So
yeah, and there are Alchemica sinks. Our goal with the arena is we want to start trying to move away from the trap of tokenizing all rewards, and people are only coming there because they can earn like a microtransaction of ERC20. We want it to be fun, and because if it's not fun, then none of this is going to work. So our main goal is to make sure that PvP is actually fun first, and then once it's fun, we can sprinkle in some Alchemica kind of sinks and microtransactions and things that actually make the combat a little bit more interesting. But we can't view PvP as like the ultimate sink, because if we view it that way, it's going to be really hard to actually make it fun, and then it's not going to work out. So if it's that the primary goal is to actually have fun, engaging combat, and then potions, summoning liquidators, enemies, those are all things that basically the side that we can have the microtransactions is more on the observer side, the streamer side, and a little bit within the arena itself. So we have a couple different strategies for Alchemica sinks, but really we don't want the combat to be like pay to win. Do this microtransaction and then you can win in the arena. It's more gacha based, and then also the more of the sinks will be on the spectator side. And that's what we're going to be trying anyway. I think that will work pretty well. But the combat has to be entertaining. If the combat's not entertaining, there's no spectators.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, this has been a overall great conversation. I know we're coming up on 2 hours here, so I think we've hit all our points here. If you want to get some follow up for this meeting that we had here today, actually, Coder or Dan, are there any last points here you want to touch on before we wrap up here?
No, I'm good, sir.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, we discussed a whole bunch of things here today. If you did want to go back and catch something, keep an eye out on for No Futures clips. He usually puts them out between today and Tuesday. Yeah, I saw that with Laura's post about changing the hangout time. But I honestly, I think she's the only Aussie I've heard say that. I think we have like 3 friends we would be we would be changing this for. I already wake up at 5 a.m., man. I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna be waking up any earlier than that. So, but if Laura wants to if she wants to talk about it, we can certainly. She can come. Yeah, she can come to Gotchi Space or Hangout, and we'll definitely talk about it. I think they'll survive. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we catch up with No Futures clips. We have ZombieShepherd maintains an RSS feed, so if you like to listen to Spotify, if you're at the gym or whatever, want to listen to the DAO call, he has you covered there. And I also have a Substack. Please subscribe if you haven't already. You'll get a midweek update on DAO activities, forward-looking, and kind of a summary of what we discussed at the meeting. So that'll come right to your inbox every week. So please subscribe for that. That was last week's bulletin. And, appreciate all of you. 67 of you coming to the DAO call. I think might be an all-time high for us, but we're growing. There are more people coming to these DAO meetings. And I want to say also we upgraded our restreaming setup to a studio setup. So you'll see some significant improvements over the next few weeks with the DAO meetings, and how they're presented to you will be a lot better. The 3 streams we have going on right now will be amalgamated into one awesome streaming experience with people working behind the scenes, making this really engaging from a visual perspective. So I can't really describe it any better than that, but you'll see an improvement in the live streams over the next couple weeks.
Awesome. Nice. Getting ready for that combat, huh?
That's right. Multi streams are coming. That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah. Restream Premium, yeah, we actually upgraded it'll be a GMI account, but we'll use it for the DAO meetings and make it a lot better of an experience. Yeah, it'll be good. Really stoked for the arena. Know you guys have been working really hard on that, and I think the official release is only in a couple of days, right? For the alpha test.
The kind of the preview release for 3 days. We're working really hard to get that to a state where it's ready to be kind of play tested by you guys. And again, it's very, very alpha. The main release really is January, but we want to get a preview to you guys before the team goes off on a holiday break. So I think it'll be ready for either Friday or the 16th. I think that's a Friday, and then the hangout as well. So basically that 3-day period is what we're aiming for.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That'll be a big deal. I know everyone's getting their weapons ready. We're getting our gotchis ready. I went out and bought a new gotchi last week because I'm like, I don't know if my current ones are good enough. So yeah, it'll be good. It'll be fun.
All right, thanks, friends. I'm gonna head out as well, and hopefully we have sweaters this time tomorrow.
Nice. Keep an eye out. Thanks,
friends. Have a great Sunday. Peace.
Oh, just trying to play John's clip. All right, later, friends. Peace out.